Hello and welcome to another episode of the Simon and Friends podcast. I'm Simon Short. Joining me tonight is Ben Parker. Ben, welcome in, man. How are you doing?
Yeah, I'm doing great. So excited to be here. We are loaded. I have already done so much film work, and not on everybody, but a lot. And you've done some, and you've done a bunch more work on a different thing that we'll get to tonight. But we are excited to be here, man. We are loaded.
Yeah, I'm taking great pride in just what we're doing year after year, Ben, of getting more and more nerdy and more obsessive compulsive, let's say, when it comes to the NFL draft. Because our whole shtick for like the last 2 years on the pod was like you're the college football guy, right? So you watch college football. This is me trying to like be people pleasing also and make things easier. Ben, you watch college football. Tell me what the prospects are like just from a viewer of watching college football as a viewer of not college football, and we'll take it easy until January, and then we'll really lock in January, right? And just put on our real draft hats and go. And then it is slowly over the course of the last couple of years diverted into you're doing mocks for the following year before the current year's draft is happening,
Right.
and then you're doing film work in May right after the draft. And
Right.
I know the players' names now at least, like, and not even just the quarterbacks, but like for NFLmocks.com went through the top 3 to 5 players at all the positions as of right now. And we are now starting to shift also into what the teams might need. We're going to get to that and introduce today's topic in just a moment. Um, but yeah, man, this is happening, right? We are full on draft. So this kind of marks in our calendars here right at the end of May. 2027 NFL draft season is upon us, and if you're here on Box Score Network, welcome and enjoy the ride because we are giving you wall to wall, month to month, day to day, year to year coverage of all things NFL draft. We'll start getting you ready for 2027. Over the summer, we'll still have some fun, historic, like backwards thinking things. We'll have some theory related pods at some point as well, just general conversations about the draft as a whole. But tonight marks our true first. We're getting you ready for the 2027 draft. Um, you've heard multiple times where Ben and I have discussed at least quarterbacks who decided to go back. So Arch Manning, Dante Moore, guys like that will be coming up tonight in the show, as well as moving forward. If you watch our shorts on YouTube, Ben has already given you guys prospect snapshots of 6 quarterbacks that are expected to go early in the 2027 NFL draft. So if you haven't taken a look at those yet, you'll hear a little bit of that tonight, I'm sure, for most of those guys, if not all of them. And then you'll be able to catch those on YouTube as well. But if you're here on the Simon and Friends podcast, you know what this is. We're gonna do what we do in terms of getting into the weeds. So let me officially introduce the topic. We'll let Ben kind of talk about what he's gonna do and what his brain is already thinking about, and then we're gonna dive in. So we do all these way too early mock drafts, right? We love looking at them the day after the draft. Ben loves looking at doing his own mocks before the draft even takes place for the draft next year. Um, but there's so much context that goes into a season that impacts what the draft is going to look like come April, right? So for the 2027 draft, we have a whole 2026 college football season, pro NFL football season that's going to change who should go where in the draft. And we're going to do all the film work, we're going to do all the team deep dives, and we're going to figure all that out by April. But if we're going to start some mock drafts now and start throwing some names around and put some team fits together, what's the most concrete way to do that? It's to do a free agency preview in May, 10 months early. So I went through and found, okay, who are the top free agents in the 2027 free agents class? Also, just a good exercise to get my head wrapped around that. I don't normally know who the free agents are until like January, February. And so now I at least have a nice little handle on that. Um, Also looked at the guys coming off of rookie contracts. So anybody that's playing on the 5th year option from the 2022 class right now, or anybody that is extension eligible, extension likely, extension not likely, maybe has their 5th year option picked up or had it denied from the 2023 class. Took a look at those names. When I did the veteran free agents, it was mostly if a guy is like a $5 million player or up. Because that'll be someone that at least takes a
Yeah.
real conversation on if they're worth re-signing for the most part. Um, so I took a look at all the team needs and then just handed it to Ben and said, Ben, This is what the one or two positions that are going to be the biggest needs just based off of those free agency parameters for each team. Match them up. Tell me what's going on. So this is a mock draft, but it's not me and Ben going back and forth. We're kind of working together. I'm telling Ben, this is what X team needs, and he's going to give me Y player that fits in. And we're going to see what it looks like, and then it'll be fun to kind of compare it down the road. And maybe the meanest thing about this is Ben suggested that I put the draft order together just off the dome for fun. And I was like, should we do Super Bowl odds? Should we look at like over under win totals? And I even typed a message that said, or should I make it up? And then I erased it because I was like, that's ridiculous. And in that very moment, Ben said, you should just make it up. And I was like, all right, well, I guess that's what's happening. So if you hate the order or you're mad about where your team's picking, you can actually yell at me about that. I actually will take full ownership of it. So I think that was enough of background information from me. Ben, what do you want to say before we dive in?
Yeah, I'm ready to rock and roll on this. The only thing I will say is this mock that we're doing tonight is need based. All right. It is not best player available. It is
Yep.
need based. That way we could build it off of the free agent work that you did. Right. I didn't want to waste the free agent work that you did. So I made a point to out of 32 teams tonight, 32 picks, 28 of them came strictly off of the first need that you had listed, your preferred need. Four others. One had like the third need listed, and then three other teams had BPA for reasons that we will get into later. But yeah, that's it.
All right, let's dive in. Here's the draft order. I'm going to give everybody a minute to digest the top eight picks. All right. So we've got the Browns at one, Jets at two, Dolphins three, Cardinals four. Those teams are pretty self-explanatory, I think, based on the rosters, based on the coaches, based on the coaching situations. And if you want to quibble with me at any point about like where some of these teams are picking, would love to hear that. Then I've got Titans, Raiders, Giants, and Falcons. Don't worry, I've got the Jets and their three picks all lined up as well. Maybe I'll reveal which pick I think is from where, or maybe I'll keep that as plausible deniability on my part. But I went with Cleveland number one because right now it's the Jets, the Dolphins, the Cardinals, and then one other team is really maybe it's even the Titans. I forget who it is off the top of my head now. Of course, as I'm doing this, I probably should have had to remember that. Um, but the Jets, the Dolphins, the Cardinals, and one other team basically had over unders of like 4.5 and 5.5, and the Browns are at 6.5. And that was the only work I did ahead of time to pick number one, because 9 times out of 10, the team that ends up with the first overall pick is not the team going into the season that's not only expected to get number one overall, but even expected to be like a top three or four pick. Like you look at the Raiders, like I think their over under was 6.5, maybe even 7.5 going into the season. Typically, if you're going to try and predict who's going to have the first overall pick, you should look at the teams that are expected to win somewhere between 6 and 7 games, not 4 to 5, just because of the randomness of the NFL. We can't always predict everything. So the Browns are at 6.5. Obviously, we're like, hey, they remade the offensive line, they kind of rebeefed up the defense. A new coaching staff is in. But I want to remind everybody this team might be starting Deshaun Watson at quarterback in 2027, 2026. That could be a disaster. The offensive line is new. That doesn't mean it's going to be better. And Todd Monken might be a disaster, man. Like, there's nothing truly indicating to us that this is going to go well. In fact, it's more likely the opposite, just in terms of what we've seen from Monken, especially since coming to Cleveland. I know they had a great draft. I know analytically they always look good. I know they can have a top five defense and they have the best defensive player in the game. But that does not make a playoff team, right? So I put the Browns here number one overall. And what I laid out for their team needs are big money free agents, are Deshaun Watson, safety Grant Delpit, and defensive lineman Malik Collins. And then Cedric Tillman, the wide receiver, is kind of the highlight of the 2023 draft class entering free agency. But Cleveland just drafted two wide receivers this year. And then Delpit and Collins are both older players on the defense. So quarterback is obviously the play here for the team number one overall. Deshaun Watson, free agent. Who knows how good Shadur is going to be? I'm assuming he's not going to be worth skipping the first overall pick on. So, Ben, what did you do with this information? Did you go quarterback and who'd you take?
We did. This is one of the teams that fit the needs list here. Wasn't too hard. We went quarterback. We went Arch Manning. So Arch Manning heading to the Cleveland Browns, number one overall in tonight's mock.
Sorry, Arch. Didn't mean to didn't mean to do that to you, man. I should I have cheated? Should I have been like the Steelers get the number one overall pick? Like Mike McCarthy's a disaster and they win 3 games?
Would have been a lot better show. Yeah.
A lot better for me too, man. All right. Let's move on here. The New York Jets. What we'll do is when we get to this next pick, because I'm sure I know who it's going to be, we'll have the discussion about the players a little bit more. Um, All right, the New York Jets. Let me scroll to them and their team needs. David Onyemata, Kingsley Enagbare, Harrison Phillips are the big money free agents. This team needs a quarterback, obviously. They have Geno Smith in place. I think he's on a 2-year deal. They have multiple picks, took pass catchers in 2026, and has a good offensive line, though Joe Tippmann is extension eligible, as is Will McDonald from that 2023 class. Those are their first and second round picks. They have over 100 million cap space, so I assume both guys can get brought back. And then if I have Bailey and McDonald at the edge, Omar Cooper, Kenyon Sadiq, and Garrett Wilson and Mason Taylor as pass catchers, I guess you could look at defensive tackle. But we're talking about their second and third picks at this point. Defensive tackle, linebacker, DB, get younger on the defense, but second overall pick has to be quarterback.
And that's exactly what we did. So they picked Dante Moore out of Oregon, second quarterback chosen, second quarterback in two picks.
All right, talk to me about where you are with Manning versus Dante Moore. Dante Moore obviously was in contention to be the number one overall pick in the 2026 class, elected to go back to school. Many joked that it was to avoid the Jets, but here we are. Could still be right there. But Manning, just ahead of Moore for you right now. Talk to me about those two guys, what you like, what you're looking for as a kind of jockey for first overall pick status.
It for me, it's neck and neck right now. As a matter of fact, I don't even have either guy as a top five lock at the moment. I mean, if I was projecting, I've got them top five, but I feel like both guys still have a good bit of work to do to really show people that they deserve that number one overall pick. I mean, everybody's talking about how deep the class is at quarterback, and it is, but these guys need to put out a good season. There's still reasons that both of them came back to play this year instead of going last year. They've got more to show. I had Dante Moore, slightly ahead of Arch Manning until I went back and watched the film again over the past few weeks. And when I watched it, I just liked Arch's easy throwing motion. I really love the way he just looks so natural at throwing the football. It doesn't even look tall, it looks natural. And as I watched that tape, that was the one thing that just barely notched him ahead of Dante Moore. Again, I feel like both guys have work to do, and I had no problem with anybody that's got Dante Moore over Arch Manning, but that's how I got to that.
All right. There will be plenty of time to go back and forth on those quarterbacks for sure, but let's keep it pushing here. Miami Dolphins sitting here at number three. Big money free agents are Jordan Brooks, Austin Jackson, and Aaron Brewer. Obviously, there's a chance this team is looking at quarterback, so I'll leave that up to you. But if we assume Willis did just enough to stick around based on that 2-year contract, and then I re-sign, let's say Brewer and Brooks, no one from 22 or 2023 draft classes to worry about with HN extended. I know this team needs a wide receiver, but don't forget about offensive tackle. If the everything didn't fall for Miami to be third overall, right? If they end up being at 7 or 8 and the quarterback run happens too early, but here at 3, they could get a quarterback. They're also in line to get that top receiver. So I think I officially went wide receiver tackle, but I don't know if you wanted to deviate for quarterback for them. What did you end up doing for Miami?
Yeah, I worked off your wide receiver need, and I picked Jeremiah Smith from Ohio State too. By most people's accounts and mine too, he's the best prospect in this draft, and I don't feel personally that it's all that close. And again, there's no such thing as a can't miss because we've seen them miss. But Jeremiah Smith has everything that you want. So I went with that. There's every argument to be made that the quarterback might be the biggest need for the Dolphins come next year, and that their need for a quarterback might be just as big as anybody else's need for a quarterback. But we will see, and we will see how these quarterbacks play. So for now, based off the work that you did and that wide receiver need there, I went Jeremiah Smith. Just real quick on Smith, he's got everything. He's got the speed, he's got the height, he's got the physicality. In 24, he showed that he could work deep and scared defenses to death. I mean, just absolutely scared every defensive coordinator out there to death. In 25, they really would not let him go deep. So Ohio State, they're smart enough to figure that out. So they dropped him into the low stuff, and he showed he could handle that and produce there as well. Just a tremendous player. Again, the physicality is there, the hands are there, the route running is there, and again, it just seems to come so natural. And I, I hesitate to use the word generational on him because I know that that gets stamped on guys. But if you're going to look at a generational type of a prospect, it's going to be a Jeremiah Smith. Not only this year's draft, but in any of say the last 2 or 3 years, this really is the guy.
For Miami, had I slotted them at one or two, would you have taken quarterback? Would you have gone with quarterback where it's that questionable need, but it's the loaded class and you're at the tippy top? Or is this it's a total unknown at this point with Willis, wide receiver is so barren, you would have taken Smith either way.
I probably would have gone quarterback if you'd have dropped him into one or two, to be honest.
Hmm.
And that gets down to a numbers thing for me. I've talked about this before. So often, not every year, but so often QB3 is a step down from QB1 and 2.
Yep.
That's not always true, but man, that holds up more often than not. So getting one of those top two quarterbacks in a rich QB draft tends to pay off better than collecting QB3. So I probably would have switched it, yes.
And then this isn't a question I've heard about Jeremiah Smith yet. I'm sure it'll come up once the season has started, if not just before. We obviously were very high on Marvin Harrison Jr.
Yep.
when he came out. Um, what is, and this isn't an Ohio State thing, right? Even though great track record, a lot of great players. I mean, we just had the Offensive Player of the Year, Super Bowl MVP. But is there a little bit of thinking about how what we thought about Marvin Harrison Jr. coming out that should creep into play for Jeremiah Smith, or is Smith to you even at this point on another level than Harrison was?
I would let it creep in myself. Now, most people won't. All right. And that's because most people are men that talk about this, and men don't ever like to admit that they were maybe wrong at some previous point, right? Okay. Listen, most of the people that were in love with Marvin Harrison and said he's a can't miss are also saying the same thing about Smith. Yes, absolutely. You should be thinking about that. All right. This guy could just get a bunch of money at the NFL level and then be satisfied. I don't think that's the case, but you never know.
Hmm.
And we've seen it too. Harrison didn't land with the greatest franchise, right? Does that have anything to do with how he's turned out? Maybe. We don't know, right? We
Yeah.
didn't get to see him somewhere else. So yes, absolutely. Now listen, people are going to start saying, "Oh no, Smith's more physical," and he probably is, and Smith can jump higher, and he probably can, and they'll list. But listen, there were so few people saying that Harrison wasn't going to make it. There were a
Hmm.
few, but it was so few. Everybody, and for every bit of physical attribute that Jeremiah Smith has that maybe Marvin Harrison was a little notch back on, the one thing you could always point to was, oh, look at his dad. His dad was a route runner and
Yeah.
an NFL supreme. So why shouldn't his son, who's showing everything like that in college, why shouldn't he turn out the same way at the NFL level? So yeah, I get that the physical attributes are not the same, but he had the NFL lineage and that mindset, and you just assumed, boy, he's going to be the same pristine worker. It hasn't
Hmm.
yet panned out. So no, I think you're 100% right. If you're going to pick up Jeremiah Smith, you can't just automatically assume he's going to rescue the room or the team. You got to make sure he's part of the plan that you're building, and that gets back to a good franchise.
As I was thinking about this, the only thing that's trying to save me from having that as my like official take, which is good because it's May. There's no reason that that needs to be my take right now. But Smith
Yeah,
is more like, and I'm glad that was the first thing you said as the difference. Smith is more physical. He's more explosive. I remember
yep,
watching Marvin being like, wow, he's so big and he's so smooth and he's so
smooth.
savvy. But when you're that big and you're that smooth and you're that savvy and that good of a route runner as he was in college, you don't have to be as physically dominant. So if he never had to do that, then he gets to the NFL and he can't be as smooth, as savvy. He's not as big compared to everybody else. But Smith is a ball of explosion, right? Plus he's gigantic. Plus he's technical. So like I do think that's where that other level is. But I'm just sitting here listening to people talk about Smith and being like, we had the same conversation with Mark. We had that great quarterback class, and we were saying, no, Marvin Harrison belongs right up there with him. Unless you have a huge need at quarterback, you take this player. Um, all right, cool. We'll save that as a little nugget in the back of our minds as we do our work. Let's get to the Arizona Cardinals. God, how many people have we already ticked off tonight? This is great. All right, the Cardinals probably just need a quarterback straight up, right? And the free agency supports that. Jacoby Brissett and Gardner Minshew are both free agents, but if you want to explore other things, the other big veteran free agents are edge rushers Zaven Collins and Baron Browning. Um, Offensive line as well. Hajalte Froholt is a free agent. They're starting center after this season. And then off the 2023 class, BJ Ojolari is a free agent, as is Paris Johnson and Michael Wilson and Garrett Wilson, the defensive back. Um, I don't even think I sent you all those in the notes because the Cardinals were the first team I wrote down. And I was just like, yeah, they need a quarterback. So, what did you end up picking for them? Did you go quarterback and who'd you take?
So I went quarterback, but this is the
Yep.
point at which, and this is admittedly, I went out and made a big reach here. Okay. But once you get past the top two QBs, all heck breaks loose. I mean, everybody's got a different opinion on who QB3 is and
Hmm.
4 and 5 and so on down the list. And matter of fact, some people even like some of, the other guys so much they got them ahead of a Moore or ahead of an Arch Manning. So that's bound to happen. So I admittedly went out on the limb here for a guy, but the name is Darian Mensah. I did match the need here. Darian Mensah,
You do
quarterback of
love
Miami.
Mensa. You do love
Yeah,
Mensa.
I do. And I will say this, man. I said this on our show last night that we did. I am wide open to having my mind changed. All right. We've got all summer to just do foundation work on these guys. And then we got a whole season to see what they really are at the next time we see them. And then we've got the draft evals to go through, right? So I'm wide open on this. But at the moment, Mensa looked good at Tulane. Then he goes to Duke, steps up, and he looks really good there. And now he's going to be at Miami, and Miami has shown that they can take these guys and work them, and he's going to have plenty of talent to work with. So I expect him to have a huge year. He's got a good, solid NFL arm strength. It's not elite anywhere near that, but plenty of arm strength to work with. He's got the size. He's got mobility, plenty of ability to get in and out of pocket trouble. He does not have the ability to kill you with his feet, so don't look for large run production. The accuracy I feel like is largely there. It's not pristine, but the accuracy is there, and the decision making, the defense reading is solid. It is not, you know, elite level, but it's all solid. So all the makings are there. Now we get to see him at Miami and against a little bit tougher schedule. What I would really love to see, though, is as they go through some of the tougher games toward the end of the year. So they've got a game against Notre Dame during the season. Notre Dame's got one heck of a defense, going to be loaded with NFL prospects this year. So I want to see how he handles that. And then if they get to go through a playoff run, how does he handle it when he's starting to go up against Georgia or when he's starting to go up against some of the other top schools that'll be in those playoffs at Oregon, whatever? Can he still hold up and look like the guy that can handle that? So, but so far there's a lot to like there. I really do like it, and I get it. There's people that don't like him, don't have him anywhere near this high. That's fine, But you're gonna have that same argument with anybody after the top two guys.
All right, let's get to the Tennessee Titans. Not a lot happening for the Titans. Tony Pollard is the big veteran free agent, quote unquote. Peter Skoronski is extension eligible, and I assume that's happening. They probably still should go O-line if they can. But wide receiver and running back are even worthy picks at some point. There's enough talent on the defense right now. I think you got to make sure Cam Ward has what he needs. So, is there an offensive lineman or a pass catcher? I know it's not a high first round pick running back class, at least as of right now, unless you're going to blow my mind away or something. But I know you're not going to do that with me in the building when we're talking this early. But is there an offensive lineman or a pass catcher you really like here for Tennessee at five, or did you do something else?
No, I did something else, and give me 1 second. I'm rolling over there.
Woohoo.
This is and I think I did a miscount here, but this is one of the teams I actually went best player available on. So
Okay.
instead of O line, wide receiver, running back, and of course I wasn't going to do running back. I actually went with best player available here. So I'm sorry for the miscount, but um, let me really quickly say there's good offensive linemen. And a matter of fact, I've got one that I've got my heart set on, but he hasn't yet truly stepped up and shown it. So I need to see it this year. We'll get to him later. There are wide receivers, man. There's a couple of wide receivers that I would love to plug in here. But there was another player here that I felt like the Titans could use, and I went with edge rusher, and I went with Dylan Stewart out of South Carolina. This guy's got the goods, okay? And again, sack production is low, okay? It's not mammoth sack production, but he's got everything else. You talk about the freak athlete, he'll be on the freak athletes list, right? Talk
Mhm.
about the size, talk about the arm length, talk about the speed. You talk about the ability to just flat out get to the quarterback and stress that pocket. It's such a huge need at every level of football, man, from NFL all the way down to 10-year-old flag. It is such a huge need. The ability to condense that time that QB's got. So that's where I went here for the Titans, and I know it's not one of your top needs here, but I just felt like the player was too good to pass on.
Yeah, and listen, they did a lot of work on the defense this free agency, like I said, but they didn't get an ace, right? The the Jets, for example, they did a lot of work to rework that defense. But like Will McDonald is, I think, a slight step above the number one. I mean, they have Jeffrey Simmons, the Titans do, but not in terms of a true pass rusher, right? Um, and the Jets got David Bailey. So if they're hoping David Bailey plus Will McDonald, those are probably both those guys are probably they're hoping to be better in 2026 than any edge rusher on the Titans, right? So the Titans got all that foundational work on defense, but they need a number one guy. If they can get a Dylan Stewart, and that's going to be a double-digit sack guy eventually, I think that makes sense. All right, let's go to the Raiders here. Um, scrolling. I wrote these in a weird order, so forgive me. Big money free agents for the Raiders are Malcolm Kuntz and Jeremy Chin. Trey Tucker is probably the biggest 2023 class member to consider re-signing, but I think this has to be wide receiver regardless, even if you bring him back. Unless Max Crosby does get traded at some point, then you can look edge. With if it's Crosby and Kuntz potentially out the building. But what did you do here for the Raiders at 6?
So yeah, I went wide receiver here, man, just like you asked for. And there's a good one sitting here. Matter of fact, so good I was tempted to hand him to the Titans, but I really felt like the Titans needed that edge rusher, so that's why I didn't go here. But there's a guy named Cam Coleman out of Texas, played for Auburn the past season, and didn't quite get to meet what everybody kind of thought his full potential was down there at Auburn. So he's getting to play with Arch Manning this year. Texas has not one but two good wide receivers to work with this year. Cam Coleman appears to be the better one. There's a lot of people who feel like if it weren't for Jeremiah Smith being this generational can't miss type of a guy, that Cam Coleman is just a shade or two behind him. Like it's not as big of a
Hmm.
difference as people might would expect. And I'm largely in that same boat. I watched him a year ago, and his size, his athleticism, his speed, his hands, it all jumped off the board. It's fantastic. I love Cam Coleman. Now, I will say, had some drops last year. There is just a little bit of sloppiness to his game, just the smallest bit of maybe, I hate to call it a lack of discipline, but just the smallest bit of lack of discipline in his game that makes you hesitate. But there's so much there to love and to like. I mean, this guy just has it in spades. The Raiders are going to be thrilled to get him. And it just doesn't look like this guy would ever be a dud. Maybe he never lives up to that high ceiling, but this guy looks like he could still produce even if he's never just that amazing guy. But I think he's got a real good chance to be the amazing guy. Matches the need here. Really like it here for the Raiders.
Yeah, and if by all accounts, it seems like going to Texas with Manning and Sarkisian like is like the thing that's gonna unlock him, right? Like really pin everything down that needs to get pinned down to unlock that.
Yep.
Hopefully the Raiders will be the type of organization that can also help that with Mendoza and with Kubiak, but TBD, we will see. All right, next up, number 7, the New York Giants. John Runyon, Greg Newsome, Evan Neal, and Devin Singletary are the biggest free agents. Kayvon Thibodeau is on his 5th-year option in 2026. So technically the last year of his deal as well, but extension eligible this summer. Micah McFadden, the linebacker, also part of that 2022 class, but he re-upped on a 1 year deal for this year, but that's a starting linebacker. And then the 2023 class has center John Michael Schmitz up for an extension. Not sure he's going to get that. And things have been questionable. I went a year out on this one. Malik Neighbors with that knee injury, like nothing is making me feel great, at least about like the reporting around how that recovery is going. So I even threw wide receiver in here a little bit for you. Um, but between Runyon and Schmitz and then Neal as kind of that swing backup guard, interior offensive line was one for me. And then I did go wide receiver as a secondary option. But if you feel we need to go another way as well, let me know. But what'd you do here for New York?
I okay, so for me, this one still falls into the need category that you listed, but I did tweak it and twist it just a little bit. All right. So apologies for that. I went offensive line, but I went with tackle, and I
Fine.
figured we could bump somebody over if we had to. But you know,
Illuminor and Maui Noah are having this battle for who's right guard and right tackle, and then secretly they're all just like, "Hey guys, you're both playing guard in 2027, so don't worry about it."
yeah, basically. All right. So here's the name. I know you know the name. The audience probably can anticipate it. It's Jordan Seaton, offensive tackle from LSU, played at Colorado last year. This guy just jumped off the film to me last year. He wasn't NFL ready last year, and I don't know if you don't know if he I don't he may not have been eligible either. But everything jumped off the film, man. The size, the speed, I mean, the feet, the long arms. I mean, there's nothing not to love here. He's just gotta, he's gotta keep fine tuning that game and get the technique down. But man, I mean, it looks great to me. I'm not yet saying it's Joe Alt type stuff, but this is to me a legit franchise cornerstone of a tackle here. And I just think this guy is a tremendous tackle here in the making. I think they're going to be happy to have him. I think any team would be happy to have Seaton. There's a chance that that he doesn't quite show that pristine work and he just floats around in the first round somewhere. There's also a chance that he looks insane at LSU and he goes up to the top prospect besides Jeremiah Smith. That's
Hmm.
he's got that about him. Aside from injury, I don't see how this guy slips out of the first round. These tackles are so needed by the NFL, and he seems like he's got the goods, even if he doesn't have a pristine season. I'd be shocked if he falls out of the first round. But that's Jordan Seaton coming out of LSU.
Yeah, that's a guy I'm really pumped up to watch, and I think that makes sense for the Giants. I won't even bug you about which side he's going to play on. I already did enough with the Maui Noah and Illuminor having to move over to guard. We'll ignore the rest of that for now. I'll give everybody a month before I start making them worry about that. Let's hit the Atlanta Falcons here, round out the top eight. Jesse Bates and Kyle Pitts are the big money free agents. But Jawan Taylor and Ryan Newsel, who are below that 5 million mark, they're going to be free agents starting offensive linemen this year, and they're going to be 30 years old in the last year of their deals. And then starting left guard, Matthew Bergeron, is in the last year of his rookie contract. So there's a lot changing there. New offense, new offensive coordinator, offensive head coach, new offensive line coach. So a lot changing with the offensive line this year for them. And the team needs building blocks. So O line, but quarterback, depending on how you think this year is going to go. Tua is playing on a small contract, obviously. Penix, they're hoping well, I don't know if they're hoping. I guess you should hope that he at least comes back from the injury and is healthy. What they want to do long term at quarterback is up in the air. So I left this for you. Quarterback, offensive line is what I was looking at for Atlanta, though. What did you do for them at 8?
Yeah, I went quarterback here. So we took CJ Carr out of Notre Dame is the guy that we went with. Again, a lot of people like Carr. Not everybody likes Carr. So here quick description on him. Uh, Plenty of NFL arm strength. It does not appear to me, and again, he didn't get as many chances to throw last year because Notre Dame ran the football so much. In my head, it was 57% of the time. It was I don't remember that something up high up there, but he looks like he's got plenty of NFL arm strength to work with. It's just not elite. It's good, solid arm strength. Maybe right with Darian Mitza, probably in the middle of the top guys. The accuracy looks to me to be very good. I think he's, again, not pristine accuracy, but very good accuracy, generally speaking. He's got plenty of mobility. He can sure get out of the pocket. I think he can pick up first downs probably at the NFL level. I do not feel like he can torch you for big plays with his feet, but the mobility feels like it's there. To me, the best part of his game, and man, out of all the quarterbacks I've seen in this year's group, he looks like the guy who's the best at reading defenses and making decisions. And again, that's saying a lot, but based on what I saw last year, this guy looks like, to me, he's head and shoulders above at reading the defenses and making the decisions. Now, the SoCal tape from last year, you could see that he did struggle once they got some heat on him. So, is that something that will consistently be a problem, or is that something he'll clean up? We'll find out. But CJ Carr is who we went with here.
And this is funny because, just 2 years ago in the 2024 class, we had the surprise Michael Penix go at 8 to the Falcons, to give us that fourth quarterback in the top 8. So if
Yep.
Atlanta were to do this, we're repeating a little bit, um, which is certainly interesting. All right, so there's our top 8, and I get all that, and yeah, the hype around the player is definitely growing. He was the one that nobody was really talking about during this year's process, but as soon as the season ended, um,
Right.
he was QB3 on a lot of the mocks, or QB4, or just a name that was getting brought up that I didn't recognize all of a sudden, right?
Yep.
So that's definitely interesting. I can see that. So, anyways, here's the top 8, and just for numbers' sake, 8 picks, obviously, 4 quarterbacks, 2 wide receivers, 1 edge, 1 offensive lineman. If we went back 2, 3 weeks ago to the pod we did of our takeaways and our historical trends, we didn't narrow it down to top 8, but it feels like we're on track with a lot of that stuff, especially with what we know about quarterback. But only 1 edge in the top 8. And that was a big conversation we had. Edge rushers actually aren't going in the top 5, top 10 as frequently as we would think. And then offensive line, do you have a lot of top talent, or are guys just getting pushed into the back half of the first round? We'll see how that continues the rest of the way here. But then, yeah, the 2 receivers and the 4 quarterbacks. All right, so that is our top 8. Manning, Moore, Smith, Mensa, Stewart, Coleman, Seaton, Carr. Go to those corresponding 8 teams. Ben, let's get to our next. How did you feel putting that top 8 together? Just give me a breakdown of that real quick, and then
Yeah, it's
we'll get to our next 8.
it's a lot of fun. I feel like, give me 1 second here, I'm gonna scroll back over to that screen. I feel like the quarterback conversation is always a whole separate conversation by itself, right? If guys flash, they're going right to the top of the draft, right? But it feels like to me when you have Jeremiah Smith, Dylan Stewart, Cam Coleman, probably Jordan Seaton, and maybe a couple of other guys that I'm gonna add in, you've got about 6 blue chippers that, man, I will be shocked come a year from now if they're not sitting in the top 10 to 15 of this draft, more than likely the top 8. It's probably going to take an injury to knock these guys off. We've hit some of them already. We'll hit a couple more here in just a minute.
All right, let's get to those next 8 teams. We have the New York Jets at 9. Now, I coined this as their pick from the Colts and the Sauce Gardner trade. I joked that I wouldn't reveal where these Jets picks were coming from, but I have the Colts picking in the top 10 as of right now, but that going to New York, obviously, followed by Washington, Carolina, Tampa, Pittsburgh, Philly, Cincinnati, Minnesota. I feel like I'm going to make quite a few people upset there. Um,
Yep.
but look, I gave the Steelers the next pick in terms of the AFC North in terms of having a bad season, so there we go. But Cincy, Philly, I have missing the playoffs as of right now. Obviously, you guys see the Panthers and you see the Bucks. Um, and we had the Falcons already, so you can figure out who I have winning the NFC South. I had to pick a surprise team. Um, that I agonized over. That was the main thing that took me a while.
Yeah.
Then I spiritually for the Vikings as of right now have things going in a better direction for Minnesota, but not necessarily actually leading to a better record or at least better pick. Because again, for as bad as things looked for Minnesota last year, they ended up with 8 wins. But here we are with the New York Jets back at the top. So as I said earlier with New York, after quarterback, I could see going to the defense, right? Looking at defensive tackle, looking at linebacker, looking at defensive back because of all those free agents I mentioned earlier. So what did you do here at 9 for the Jets, Ben?
I went with worked off your needs and went straight to your second need there that was listed defensive tackle here. We went with David Stone, defensive lineman out of Oklahoma. A lot of people really like Stone. I really like Stone. It appears to me right now that there's probably a 3-man race for top defensive tackle this year. So stay tuned. We may see them take turns, with
Yeah.
lead dog all year long and then even up to the draft, depending on how they show out here. So I'm not suggesting that Stone is the only defensive tackle that could be considered. I think there's at least two others,
Yeah.
but David Stone, kind of for me at the moment, was leader in the clubhouse. Seems to be a little more consistent than the other two guys. But man, those other two guys, they might have more talent than David Stone has. So stay tuned on that. But for now, Jets picking up David Stone, defensive tackle out of Oklahoma.
Yeah, if this did end up being a defensive tackle, there as of right now, yeah, there's a very clear three names that everyone's kind of passing around, and it's just depending on the flavor and depending on what you're looking for. But David Stone's certainly there in the mix. Washington, Daron Payne, Dorrance Armstrong, K'Lavon Chaisson, Frankie Louvu, Marcus Mariota, and Percy Butler are the big name free agents. So think about all the work they did at edge rusher and on the defensive front this year, and then they have all these free agents coming up in 2027. No one from the 2022 or 23 draft classes are of concern for extensions or re-signing. So some sort of defensive front player is the biggest need based on free agency. But you know this as well as anybody, Ben, covering the Commanders as much as you do on your channel. Outside the corner and wide receiver could still certainly be in the mix. But there's enough there that I wouldn't be surprised if over the course of the season you're like, oh, those position groups are actually kind of fine. So if we were truly looking at just the free agency period, um, there's a lot of defensive front players that are going in free agency. But as a guy who covers the Commanders extensively, I'll give you room to operate.
I appreciate it. So this one was fun, and I love that you had defensive line and CB here and wide receiver. I went with the second one here. This one's tough. This one's really hard. Uh, Honestly, come draft time, most people, myself included, would probably take the other player that I didn't pick here. But I went ahead and went with the cornerback, which I feel like is the biggest need. I went with Leonard Moore out of Notre Dame, cornerback. Uh, if Commanders fans have the choice, I'll go ahead and say it. Colin Simmons out of Texas. If Commanders
Hmm.
fans have the choice, if they have a rotten enough year and they miss the playoffs, we may be looking at a whole new coaching staff. But
Yep.
come draft time, if they have the choice between Leonard Moore uh, out of Notre Dame or Colin
Colin
Simmons,
Simmons.
defensive end out of Texas, they're going to be just excited with those two players. You can only pick one, but they'll be excited with either one. So tonight we're going to take more out of Notre Dame, but Colin Simmons sitting right there, man. I only went with larger need here. Really, that safety is rough for the Commanders. It is rough, man. They got a lot to go on there, but that's who we went with.
And and I would say I like the players more for Washington at corner than on the defensive line. But the issue is they're all like 5'9", and that's just not going to get you anywhere. And Moore is considered the big physical but fluid and talented and technical press man corner. Like I was seeing Christian Gonzalez comps. Um, and here's where I'm going to get one more dig in on 2026, Ben. We're all losing our minds about Leonard Moore right now, right?
Yes.
Oh, we haven't. This is Pat Surtain. This is Derek Stingley. We haven't had a guy like this in 5 years, right? We haven't had a corner like this to go after.
Yeah.
But everyone applauded the Chiefs for trading up to get a corner
Yeah.
with all the needs on offense that I was screaming about. And we're just not even like it's like what you said about Jeremiah Smith and Marvin Harrison. Like we're just gonna ignore everything we said about Marvin Harrison Jr. now that we're gonna get excited about Jeremiah Smith.
Right.
It's like Delane doesn't exist. It's not like anybody was like, oh, Leonard Moore. Like if I had to put him up against Mansour Delane in this year's draft, I don't know. But it was a good thing for the Chiefs to trade up to take a corner. We don't have to rehash it. We don't have to do the whole thing. I'm not gonna make you do it. I just want to reiterate that. Didn't like it when it happened. All right.
I'm with you, by the way, on the Chiefs thing. I would have taken offense. I will say on Leonard Moore, he's the real deal as far as a good player. But do I see him as a true shutdown guy, harking all the way back, 20 years ago to some of the legends? No, I don't see that. It's too
Mm.
hard in today's NFL. So, you should be getting a really good, tough guy. But you can see, he gave the SoCal receiver from this year, not Jacoby Lane, but
Lemon. Okay.
yeah, Lemon. He gave Lemon a handful, but he also had a linebacker helping inside on some of the routes, and then
Hmm.
on some of the other routes, he had a safety over the top helping.
Hmm.
And it's just a really good Notre Dame defense. So you kind of have to do a little calculus there to try to figure out, well, how good is he? Well, he's really good,
Hmm.
but would I necessarily tell teams to go draft him top five? I would not.
Wouldn't have told the Chiefs to do it either. We'll see. All right, Carolina's at 11. Hey, listen, good year for Carolina. They win the division. But ultimately, I put them in third place in the South. I liked what the Saints and the Bucks did. I really like what the Panthers did. They won the offseason in the power rankings. I did with Josh. Um, Another team that I think set themselves up well for the future, but I think they still have very clear deficits. So here we go with the Panthers. Patrick Jones and Michael Jackson are the big money free agents. Ikem Ekwonu is on his fifth-year option in 2026, but also obviously has the huge knee injury. Then there's the question of Bryce Young, who they'll have to decide if they want to extend him, pick up his fifth-year option this summer. If I'm the GM, I'm declining the fifth-year option, and I'm not giving him an extension yet. And I'm not doing anything with Ekwonu after drafting Freeling and bringing in Rasheed Walker to the building. I'm potentially interested in trading up for a quarterback or going for a veteran and drafting a corner because this was where I at least was leaving the light on for Leonard Moore. Now, I don't know if you think there's a CB2 worth taking here at 11, um, but I would still be leaning corner for or quarterback for Carolina here. Probably keeping my powder dry on the money on Aquanu and Young. I'll just wait and see, right? If Aquanu comes out, plays 6 games at the end of the year and is awesome, and I have to sign him to more money than I would have had I extended him, fine. If Bryce Young takes another step forward and I have to pay him a little bit more money, I mean, I'm probably not doing it, but like for the Panthers, I'd rather be in that position than give him an extension now or guarantee him 35, $40 million on a fifth-year option 2 years from now without seeing what he's going to do this year. So I'm just going to kind of wait and see. So for Carolina, I put quarterback as their biggest need, but I left the light open for a corner if you like one here. But what are you doing with because Michael Jackson is their other starting corner. But what are you doing here for Carolina?
Yeah, this is where I broke out of the mold here. I didn't go with the needs, and I do think we should have a quarterback conversation here, a Bryce Young conversation here in just a second. But I'll tell you what I did. I went with Colin Simmons, defensive end out of Texas here. Went ahead and added him to Carolina. Again, this guy's too good.
Yeah,
Maybe some people are going to be screaming about him sitting at 11.
yeah.
Somebody's going to be sitting there at 11.
We
And
wouldn't
we'll
have
be
had Ruben Bain here at this time
right.
last year
So
or during any mock. So, yep.
it's just the way the draft works. So anyway, Colin Simmons in tonight's mock is sitting here. I did think about quarterback. To me, there's not a CB sitting here that I would be in favor of taking this high. Just for me right now, but Colin Simmons looks like again the real deal here. I've got him just a notch behind Stewart from South Carolina. But man, I know people who swear by Colin Simmons, and when you turn on the tape, you're like, heck yeah, that's a
Hmm.
player, buddy. So man, you can see his athleticism, his strength. He holds up. He's not a huge player, but for his size, he's got tremendous strength. And then his ability to get to the quarterback. I mean, this is a heck of a player. So Panthers would be thrilled to get him if they don't go for the quarterback.
In doing this, I imagine in your head canon, you created a scenario for what you're doing with Bryce Young. Um, so what would you do with Bryce Young, both right now and at the end of 2026 if you were in that GM chair?
Yeah, see, I would, and I haven't figured out the logistics, but I'd either be giving him one more year to just work through it,
Yeah.
or I'd be drafting somebody in the second round at the quarterback spot, one or the other. In all honesty, you mentioned them trading up. If they get the next offseason and Bryce Young isn't the guy, this probably is the draft to try to trade up and maybe get QB3. I don't know, maybe too expensive to get one or two. But man, we're already talking about QB5 here. So now there's a guy here
Right.
sitting here that I'm about to draft with the next spot that a lot of people like at quarterback, and I don't. But a lot of people do. So there's argument to be made there. But I had reasons for not adding him here to Carolina, but we'll get into that in a second. But anyway, went ahead and went defense here. This guy, Colin Simmons, I just felt like he was too good if we weren't going to pick a quarterback.
All right, and quick note by me on Bryce Young. They did already pick up his fifth year option. As I was saying that, I was like, did I get the math wrong in my head? So he is under contract for 2027. So you have a little bit of time to play with. Um, but if for them, hopefully this is gonna be the last time they're close to the top 10. Yeah, like you said about packaging stuff up, moving up, certainly could be a possibility. But again, for Carolina, just like in 26, they covered their bases so well. They could just take best player available, and then if instead of reaching for QB5, like you said, they can get an edge rusher that could be a top five, top seven, top 10 pick. That definitely makes a lot of sense too. Bryce Young, they have a little time if they just want to play out this year and make them play out 2027. They can, and then move on past that. All right. Up next, you hinted at it, the Tampa Bay Buccaneers. I did a lot of not a lot of talking, but I took a swing a little bit on Tampa. I thought they could have gone quarterback in this draft. They did not, but big money free agents are Baker Mayfield, Chris Godwin, Vita Vea, Ashawn Robinson. And then you go into the rookie extension guys, Kalijah Kancey, Cody Mock, Yaya Diaby. Um, a lot will be determined, I think, by how this year goes. This was my like biggest linchpin team, right? It was easy for me initially to kind of pencil them into winning the division. But ultimately I think I let content play out where I was like, instead of having them draft down there at 18 for winning the NFC South, let's put them at 12 and make Ben squirm and make a decision a little bit. If it's a good season, i.e. like winning the division, right? Because for the NFC South, like the basement is winning the division, right? 9 wins or so. You probably pay Baker, you probably pay Godwin, you let the defenders, you let Vita Vea go and Robinson go. You don't pay everybody. And then you extend Cansey and Diaby. You get young on defense with all the great draft picks they've made in the last 2, 3 years. Um, you keep the offense where it's at, and you try to keep this thing moving. If you miss the playoffs, though, that's where that's the scenario I've put them in. That's where I think you kind of hit a full reset. Quarterback could be gone, coach could be gone. You maybe extend the defense. I don't know. Maybe you let those guys walk too. But what direction did you take this in for Tampa? I mean, you kind of hinted at it, but you could go quarterback and totally start a rebuild. You could go defensive line. I said defensive tackle. You could do edge if you don't think Diaby's back. What are you doing for Tampa?
Yeah, I went quarterback. I'll tell you who in just a second. But credit to you here on this, for spotting this. It's not stuff that I always get into myself. I'm not as good at it, but you did a great job spotting this. You can kind of sort of see the Bucks giving this one more year, and then if the general manager wants to, which I think he's a good GM,
Hmm.
but if he wants to, he's kind of already got it set up. The chips set up to just drop a few on out here and hit a mini reset. It's not a full tear down and rebuild if he doesn't want it to be. He's got the cupboard stocked to some degree. But if you need to shed a coach, shed a quarterback, it wouldn't be a bad year to be picking up a new quarterback. And there's always another bright young coach out there to give a try to, right? So, you can see all of that played out. That's excellent work by you. And then I'm sure the NFL script writers are gonna really appreciate your efforts there too to let that play out. There's every chance that it happens. So I went along with that. I did go quarterback and I picked up Julian Sayin, quarterback out of Ohio State. A lot of people like this guy, and I respect him. I'm just not first round high on him. And I'm open to having my mind changed, but you know me, I'm a little hard headed. I may not change my mind on that. Why not, Ben? Well, the height is an issue. There have been other successful short quarterbacks, yes, but it's not been a lot. The arm strength is not great. It's on the lower end of these quarterbacks. Listen, it's not terrible, but it is on the lower end of what these quarterbacks we're talking about in this year's draft class are, and it'll be at the lower end of the starting NFL guys. And then you have to point out, well, he's playing with all that talent, so how could he not look good? But he does look good, man. You go back and watch his tape, he looks real good. So, I've got 3 knocks against him, and I realize that there are guys who have beaten all 3, and maybe he does. And I would especially, I forget who I said this with last year. I would especially approve this guy if my offensive coordinator, who I thought was an exo genius, really wanted him. And he'd be like,
Hmm.
no, this guy totally fits what I need. Let's roll. Okay, let's do it. But I would really need somebody in the building to be that strong, and I would need to see it too. see that link there. So that's what I went with. Julian saying out of Ohio State for the Buccaneers.
All right. Yeah, I figured I was putting you in a quarterback corner there, but I was seeing
QB
if you would
five.
get me to go the other way, but nope, here we are. All right, Pittsburgh Steelers. Sitting there like, "Ooh, can we get QB6 at 13? I don't know. I don't know." No, the Will Howard Drew Aller competition in 2027 is going to be peak. Anyways, Aaron Rodgers and Patrick Queen are the big free agents, and if you put any stock into what he says, Rodgers claims this will be his last year of his career. The 2023 class has multiple extension candidates that look at though: Joey Porter Jr., Keanu Benton, Darnell Washington, and Nick Herbig. Are they bad enough to get a QB at 13? I don't know. You'll tell me if QB6 makes sense. Linebacker does make a lot of sense, but is there one worth drafting here at 13? You can probably keep one of Herbig or Benton. And then Cam Hayward and TJ Watt are also certainly up there in age, so you could go with a defensive lineman here as well. So, is there a quarterback that makes sense? Is there a linebacker that makes sense to replace those big free agents? Or do you see a D tackle or edge you like here to supplement one of those guys not getting extended? Or did you go a different direction?
In honor of this being your favorite team, I'm actually going to let you make the final decision here. I'm going to make a couple of strong recommendations
Okay,
and then
excellent.
do a couple of honorable mentions, but I'm going to let you pull the trigger here. Okay.
Okay.
For me, it's got to be quarterback. All right. There's too many candidates sitting there.
Okay.
So that's what I went with. All right. Has to be
Okay.
quarterback. My two recommendations, strong recommendations at this point. One is a way too early guy. It's like, oh my gosh, how could you even forecast this? Well, it's Drew
Mm-hmm.
Mestamaker,
Mm-hmm.
quarterback out of Oklahoma State, came from North Texas, lit it up, but the whole offense lit it up, right? So now they're Oklahoma State. We're going to see them play with the big boys this year, right? We're going to
Yep.
see them play
Mm-hmm.
against Oklahoma and all them other teams, see how they do. But boy, he's 6'3". I think he's what, 215, 220, something like that. He can move around. He's not Lamar Jackson, but he can move around, got the mobility, float around. The accuracy looks good, but again, it was at North Texas. He's got the arm. It's not Josh Allen arm, but he's got plenty of NFL arm strength. He looks like he's got it in the head too. I think that's a big thing. Him and his
Mm-hmm.
coordinator look like they have this thing figured out. But again, wait till you get to go play with the big boys, and we'll let you know for sure. Really like what I'm seeing here. There's always a chance he doesn't even enter next year's draft. He hangs around for
Yep.
another season, right? So, caveat there. It also looks like he's still growing into his body. Out of all the quarterbacks in this year's draft, I don't think it's even close. He looks like he's still kind of filling out to an NFL level body. Like, and
Mm-hmm.
he's going to do it. Like that will happen. But it looks like he's youngish type body. So that's your one. The other guy is a guy that a lot of people are kind of low on right now. Maybe rightfully so, but still, maybe don't go to sleep on him. That's Jaden Mayava, quarterback out of SoCal. Bigger guy, got to me, the biggest arm in the draft this
Mm-hmm.
year. Very large arm. Excellent at spinning out of trouble. Oh my gosh. Some of his little Houdini tactics are beautiful to spin out of trouble, but decision making and accuracy are probably among the poorest out of, say, the top 10 or 12 quarterbacks in this year's draft. So those are my two strong recs. Honorable mention, I can't leave out our friend Todd McShay, his favorite number one quarterback, probably Brendan Sorsby. If he even makes it next year's draft, he may go supplemental. And then I'll also mention one other guy here. Give me 1 second here. I can't not mention Lenora Sellers, who
Yeah.
he's man, he's I'm not sure the light has come on for him yet, but you talk about a guy that has all the attributes in spades, size, arm strength, everything, speed, so those are the four guys right there.
I'm gonna take out Mestmaker. All that just scares me. I'm gonna take out Sorsby. I liked Mayava, man. I liked that 2 week period where we watched him a little bit for the 26th class when he was starting to get a little buzz. I liked him.
Yeah.
But Sellers is a lot of fun. Oh goodness. Mayava or Sellers. But no one's really talking about Sellers right now. No one's really talking
No.
about it. I'm a little nervous about that.
Nope.
Where's Mayava even on here? Wow, Mayava's down there too. But no, I've seen his name on more. Let's go Mayava. I liked Mayava. I liked what
Okay.
he did on tape. For those couple USC games I was watching this past year. I like the size. I like the arm. Um, and I know. like quarterbacking is in there. Now with Sellers, when we were watching him ahead of the 25 season, I remember already thinking about like, okay, people were saying this is a project quarterback, but I already thought he was like ahead. I thought he was ahead of like where Milrow was at Alabama. So it wasn't that far down.
Right.
But so many bad habits were picked up across last season. I think it would take real work to rework that, right? So give me the guy that, yeah, needs to better his decision making, but I think those decisions aren't so much I don't know what's going on as much as I'm gonna try something, and I'd rather have that. So I'll go with Mayava. I'll go with me. I thought you were gonna give me options of other positions, so now that made me more nervous. But here we are, Mayava, the quarterback. I'll take it.
I like Mayaba too, and I listen for me. He's QB 5 or 6. He's not high, but people are knocking him. Listen, the productivity is there. You can tell the light's on. All right, you can tell when a quarterback has kind of hit the light is on. It's just, well, how good can he be now?
Mm,
I always said about some other quarterbacks, it looks like the light hasn't quite hit yet. For him, it has. It's just a question of, well, maybe he's just never going to be super accurate and super great decision making, right? But he's productive and the arm is there, and you can tell like he's into these games, man. He's in. This is a guy who understands the game. So, that may just be what he is, and a guy can work with that. So
yeah, absolutely. All right, let's get to 14. The Philadelphia Eagles, Reek Woolen, Dallas Goddard are the big free agents. Jalen Carter and Nolan Smith are on fifth-year options for 2027. Certainly questions surrounding those two long term. Um, but Tyler Steen is also questionable as an extension candidate. This pick probably should be offensive line to get out in front of that. We had Lane Johnson and Landon Dickerson both consider retirement going into this offseason, plus Steen being extension eligible. But the D line is obviously also a possibility. So I give you the option of the trenches. Do you want to go O line? Do you want to go D line?
I love it. I love that you put the Eagles here too. How dare you? That's that's awesome.
Our pal Robertson will tell you that there's a different winner in the NFC East every year, and sure, it was a
Yeah.
little different the last couple seasons here, but dude, when inside your building you got maybe your best player on the whole team wanting to leave, and like maybe everyone knows he's already leaving, and then you run the best coach on the team out the building in Jeff Stoutland. Um,
Mm.
this I think this has potential for like all-time bad vibes years in Philly. Like you know how it goes, man. When Philly is high, it's high. And then when you got Doug Peterson tanking the final game of the season, even though everybody knows he's going to get fired anyways. Yeah, that's the vibes I think we might have in Philly this year, man. Jordan Davis gets his extension. Jalen Carter's waiting to see if he's getting one. Like, I don't know. I think there could be some bad news. And this could look dumb because the defense could just be like top five, and maybe the offensive line's healthy all year, and the run game's awesome. I don't know. I got bad vibes right now.
Dysfunction is fun until you start losing, and then everything just completely falls apart.
Right,
Talent,
right.
talent notwithstanding. I mean, the dysfunction can kill you once the losses start to pile up a little bit. I went Trevor Gooseby. Is it
Yeah.
Trevor? Is
That.
that?
Yep. Yep.
Yeah.
That
Okay.
makes a lot
Yeah.
of sense.
Trevor Gooseby, tackle out of Texas. Could have gone into last year's draft.
Mm-hmm.
Decided to
Almost
stay. I'm
did.
glad he
Yep.
did. He'll get more work. He'll make more money. So, and it's not as cool now with Stoutland not being there, but still, he's got a good landing spot here with the Eagles, and so he'll be happy, and the Eagles should be happy here as well.
And if Stoutland's not going to be there, better outcome than say, Caden Proctor going, and you're like, I hope Caden Proctor can get developed into a Lane Johnson. Sure, Gooseby is a guy that playing at Texas has played both sides, has experience, is just a massive dude. Like he's going to walk in with that good athlete. So, um, a little more like easy to see than like having to put the Stoutland glasses on and say it's going to work because Stoutland's there. Like that, this
Right.
tracks. All right. Cincinnati Bengals at 15. Um, you could just copy paste this every single year pretty much, but here we go. Big money free agents are T. Slayton, then you got Joe Flacco and Ted Karras. But Dax Hill is playing on his fifth-year option, and DJ Turner is also in the last year of his rookie deal. So I put cornerback as their number one need for Cincinnati. But what did you do?
And I stuck with that. We picked up Ellis Robinson, cornerback out of Georgia. Stay tuned on this one. CB1 seems to be locked in until further notice. CB2, there
A lot
seems
of
to be a
very.
very wide range.
Mhm.
So stay tuned on this. But for now, Ellis Robinson, you've got the Georgia background. He's physical, he's fast. But stay tuned on this. And maybe, but, Cincinnati needs defense. They need a CB. This still fits.
Yeah, plug and if you like a different corner, like plug name in here. This is again more about positions and needs rather than like exact players, especially here, already in the middle of the first round. All right, let's get to our final pick of this section here, the Minnesota Vikings. Big money free agents. This is where you get to like take a little break, Ben. Kyler Murray, Andrew Van Ginkel, Brian O'Neill, T.J. Hawkinson, Blake Cashman, Aaron Jones, Isaiah Rodgers, and Jordan Mason. Jordan Addison is also extension eligible, and that's complicated. What I mapped out for you is if Caleb Tiernan, the third round pick out of Northwestern, can kind of become their Brian O'Neill succession plan. Dallas Turner and Jake Golday can look like they can be your edge rushers in 2027, with Van Ginkel being a free agent after trading Jonathan Grenard. And then let's say Kyler is worth re-signing, plus maybe a cheap deal for Cashman, right? As an undersized, a little bit older linebacker, it shouldn't be too hard to bring him back. I tried to narrow this down for you because there was a lot of directions. I went with pass catcher, a wide receiver or a tight end being their biggest need. But if you wanted to edit any of my plans here, feel free. But I went with pass catcher as being what I think is the number one need.
And I stuck with that because I do want it to be based off of our free agent conversation tonight. I went with wide receiver. Now, I didn't go with the name that all the mocks automatically lock in here at this wide receiver spot, but it's a guy that I'm a pretty stout believer on until further notice, and that's wide receiver TJ Moore out of Clemson. This guy has the goods, man. He's got the speed, the athleticism, the hands, the route running. Last year, he still had a good year last year. It just got lost in the shuffle of the Clemson awfulness, right?
Yeah.
He had a good year last year. People just wanted to pull him down, and I just didn't see it, man. When I would look at the tape on him, I like the tape. Is it as pristine as you would like it to be? No. Is it as clean? No. But the guy produced, man. The guy produced, and he's got the talent. So what else do you really want here? Out of what are we at now? Wide receiver 3 or 4, and we're at the what 16th pick in the draft. You're not going to have everything here. This is a guy I'm a big believer in. I will be surprised if he's not a first round pick come next year. I really will be. And people don't have him there right now, but I feel like they should. I don't make a whole lot of deep flag planting, but I'm tempted to on this guy. I feel like people are all over the map on some of these wide receivers, and that's fine because there's a lot of good ones. This guy to me, yeah, I know people who even like Wesco on his own team better. I don't. This guy to me, he looks like he has the goods. And this guy to me looks like he could be a number one receiver. He would be a number two on the Vikings, of course. But he just looks legit. So that's it. TJ Moore from Clemson.
All right. I like it. Yeah, a lot of ways the Vikings could go, but I think of all those potential free agents, I think moving on from a pass catcher and getting what would that be, wide receiver three in the class, whoever you want to put in there, would be probably their optimal outcome. So here's our next group of eight. New York Jets getting this pick from the Indianapolis Colts, get David Stone, defensive tackle. Then you got Leonard Moore, the high-ranked corner from Notre Dame going to Washington. Then you got Colin Simmons before Julian Sand and Jada Maiava. Um, it's a little bit the inverse, but you got to look at the Panthers living with Bryce Young for another year and then watching those two quarterbacks go back to back after. You hope it's not an inverse of the Minnesota Timberwolves taking Ricky Rubio and Johnny Flynn right before Steph Curry. Like if the Panthers don't have a quarterback and then Sand and Maiava are both good, they're gonna not love that idea. But I think the decision making was sound based on how you laid it out. Goosby to Philly, corner Ellis Robinson going to Cincy, TJ Moore going to the Vikings. All right. Ben, as you look at that group of eight, as we get ready for the third group here, how do you feel the mock's going so far?
Yeah, it's going great, but now it does start to get way more confusing after those I'm going to say after those top 10 or 11 picks, pretty much picking up 10, 11. The Commanders, I think, have easy choices, but right there at the Panthers, the Buccaneers, the
Yep.
Steelers, they've all got some tough decisions to make if it were to lay out that way.
All right. Here's 17 through 24. I've got the Patriots up next. Maybe Patriot fans aren't happy with this either. Another team, just vibes aren't great right now. But a little bit of Super Bowl hangover, a little bit of hitting above our weight with, the think about the quarterbacks in the AFC that they had to go through Josh Allen, but like Mahomes, Jackson, Burrow, so they kind of a I don't like doing the cupcake schedule thing, but just in terms of like thinking about are they locked into being the best team in the AFC again? No. So I've got them here. In terms of their biggest needs, I've got big money free agents are Mike Onwenu, the guard, Hunter Henry, Kevin Byard, and Christian Ellis. Christian Gonzalez should get his contract extension at any point this summer, so we should be good there. But he is the headliner of the draft class players. Even without the Caleb Lomu pick, that's that's probably more about Morgan Moses. We've talked about Elijah Vera Tucker's injury, so you could look at guard between Onwenu being a free agent who's a little bit older, and is AVT going to be healthy long term? But linebacker and safety, I think, also makes some sense with those free agents I listed. So what did you do for New England here?
I was really tempted to do one thing. I went with something else. So you mentioned OG first, linebacker second, safety third. I went with safety here, basically based on the amount of talent sitting at those positions. I don't personally feel there's an automatic first round pick at linebacker this year. There's one guy who may work himself into that. We'll see. I feel like there's probably several top 40, top 50 linebackers, not
Mhm.
automatic first rounders for me. On the offensive guard, at the moment, this may change. I haven't done all my tape work on these guys for sure. I don't I don't have automatic first rounders on the offensive guard positions either this year, but again, give them a year and let me do my tape work and we'll say for sure. So I went safety KJ Bolden out of Georgia. Looks like a tremendous talent, gonna fit the Patriots really well.
Yeah.
It would be a great fit for them. So I check, check, check. Now, what I was tempted to do, and I have a good reason for not doing it, I was tempted to give them Caden Green out of Missouri, who
Yeah.
played offensive guard in 24, played tackle, I believe, last year. But
Hmm.
the Patriots are already moving too many people around anyway, or at least have the temptation to need to move them around. So I didn't want to introduce another guy into that and make him go back and play guard when you know he's going to want to stick at tackle.
Hmm.
And I did not want to make somebody else move to guard so we could put this guy at tackle. I didn't do that, but I was tempted. So no, we went with KJ Bolden, safety out of Georgia.
Yeah, a Georgia safety for Vrabel and the Patriots, the way they play that defense makes a lot of sense. Caden Green, that's going to be an interesting eval over the course of the season. Um, it's always interesting when the guys, especially on the offensive line, end up going back because usually when they go back, they just like completely fall out of like you don't even know where they went, right? Like they don't even end up drafted.
Yeah.
Like Ernest Green from Georgia, the Georgia tackle from
Hmm.
we previewed him before the 2025 draft, and he had to go back to school and like I don't know, man. He might be a GA coach for them in a year or two at this point. Like I don't know. He just disappeared. I don't know where he went. Um, they're like created players in Madden where they're on the team for 5 years and then they just like leave the simulation after a while. When an offensive lineman has to go back. But you have your rare occurrences. Blake Miller was one, from Clemson. He could have come back. Gooseby seems like he's going to be another one. So we'll see what happens with Caden Green, who's was mocked in as like a day two pick going into last year, was made clear he wasn't coming out, and is now back into like being pushed in the first round of mocks. We'll see. We'll see if he comes back up. But that'll be an interesting one. All right. I somehow took that and talked more about the offensive lineman you didn't pick. But let's go to the Detroit Lions. And this could go a lot of ways. I think this was the team I gave you the most leeway on. So let
Thank
me
you, by
walk
the
you
way.
through it. You're welcome. Yeah, big money free agents here because all it is Larry Borom and Brock Wright. So it's your number two tight end and it's your swing tackle. 2023 class waiting on extensions are Jameer Gibbs, Sam Laporta, and Brian Branch. They already took care of Jack Campbell. Um, I can be convinced of a lot of ways. Do things continue to go downhill in terms of the magic of Ben Johnson who's gone? Is it going to get even worse this year? Do they need to do a full reset at quarterback even? Um, do they have to are they able to pay all three of those extension candidates, or do they have to pick one between Laporta and Branch? Obviously, they're going to re-sign Gibbs. Does Derek Moore not move the needle at edge this year? Do they need to get back out and do edge rusher? Do they have to get way out in front of the 2028 free agents and look at corner between Terry and Arnold and DJ Reed? Those decisions both coming up as they're starting outside corners. So I gave you freeway to do whatever you want. QB, tight end, O line, edge, corner, safety. Um, What do you want to do?
I appreciate the leeway. I went edge here, and I don't want to say I'm reaching because I'm not convinced I am, but I'm probably early, really early on this guy. There are people who like him, but it's kind of cautiously, I haven't done all my tape work and reached my full final
Yes.
judgments. But so far, I like this guy. It's defensive end Kenyatta Jackson out of Ohio State.
Mm.
This guy right here, he's not super high up on mocks. He's in the mix for like, top 2 rounds kind of a thing, top 60, 75 guys. I mean, I like this guy. He's got the size, he's got the physicality. He holds up. I mean, he's good against the run, but he can get at the quarterback. He's got moves, and he's not your quick twitch guy, but he gets to the quarterback. And you can even watch the tape of him against Indiana last year with Carter Smith, who, by the way, is an offensive tackle that's getting a lot of consideration for this year's NFL draft. I like the way he operated against Carter Smith. It wasn't domination, but I liked the way he operated. You look at Kenyatta Jackson, that man, what's not to like here? So I may be too high on him right now, and I may pull him on back to pick 40 by next spring. But at the moment, the Lions could sure use that. I'd love to line him on the opposite side from Aiden Hutchinson. Be a good pairing for me.
You're Detroit. Would you extend all those guys I was talking about? Would you extend Branch and
Not all of
Laporta
them.
and Gibbs?
No, I'd have to sort through it. Usually, my mode of operation is, and again, I'm not a GM. I pretend to be one. I like to play one. But usually my preferred operation is to do what the Bills did 3 or 4 years ago. Grab one guy, just sign him immediately, like after 3 seasons, first
Hmm.
chance. Just knock him out, get him out of the way. Make the next guy kind of wait till when he was expecting it. Then
Hmm.
make another guy wait maybe a little bit longer than he wanted to the following season. But, he kind of sort of thinks it's coming and we're talking to him. And then you let the other people go, but hopefully you trade them before they just all walk. So
Hmm.
that's kind of my preferred when you have them all hitting at once like that.
Yeah, when my NFC North written version of this for NFL mocks went up today, and where I ultimately settled, because who wants to read something where I said they could go in six directions? Where I ultimately went was I said between Brian Branch coming off the injury,
Yeah,
they paid Kirby Joseph, and he has his own injury concerns,
it does.
and you have the worries about forward thinking with Arnold and Reed at corner for the following year. I ended up saying defensive back. Like, do you find a safety nickel hybrid? Is there one of those that pops up over the course of the year? Do you get a pure
Yeah.
safety? Because then you're like, if corner has to take a step back, let's have Joseph with a young safety. I ended up leaning that way specifically, but for you, yeah, I wanted to leave it open ended because there's a world where they want to pay all those guys and they do, and then they're just like, what's left? So that makes sense. All right. New Orleans, 2026, 2027 NFC South champion, New Orleans Saints. I'm tracking the um, uphill trajectory of this team. How did you feel about me making them the NFC South winner? And then I'll get into the needs after that. Just a quick hit. When you saw I had the Saints winning the NFC South, what did you think?
No, I loved it because I wasn't high on Tyler Shuck, and yet what I saw last year, I'm like, man, there's something there. How high can it get? Well, we'll find out, but there's something there. And then, you know, I'm liking the Saints general manager more and more, even though I still don't really love the way the operation works. I like him. And then, Kellen Moore. We know Kellen Moore's a sharp football mind. We just don't yet know how high can he go.
Hmm.
So it's the South, man. The bar is not very high here.
Right. Like this is me giving them 10 wins and the Panthers like 8 and then the Bucks 9 and the Falcons
Right.
6, right? Like this isn't a huge discrepancy between any of these teams I'm
And I'd
creating here
love
in
to
my
see it.
mind.
Yeah. Yeah.
And I just thought, tra upward trajectory, had a good offseason. I totally buy into the plan of insulating the
Yeah.
offense around Shuck and what he did. Um, Running back, guard, first round wide receiver. Um, Kept
Yes.
Chase Young. Like I get I just get everything they put together. Young defensive backs. They let Alontae Taylor walk in free agency. Demario Davis got a contract. They said we're not going to overpay for the defense. We're going to build out this offense, see what happens. Um, so just wanted to reward them for the trajectory a little bit. So anyways, their big money free agents are Alvin Kamara, Tyree Wilson, Devon Godshaw, and Nathan Shepard. Not, you got defensive tackles. You got a swing, a wild card edge rusher you traded late pick for, and then Kamara, who you effectively have already replaced in Travis Etienne. Chris Olave on his fifth year option in 2026. Brian Brzee is up for an extension already. Um, they also, I mentioned Etienne running back. They drafted Kristen Miller, drafted Jordan Tyson. So some sort of defensive end or edge rusher is what I call the biggest need. So who's that like not a true defensive tackle, but just outside of that to edge rusher, whether you want it to be like a stand-up outside linebacker, hand in the dirt, 4-eye, 5 tech type of player. Who's that defensive end slash edge rusher that you would maybe want for New Orleans, or did you go a different direction?
No, I stuck with what you said here. This is really a true defensive end. He really will not move inside hardly at all. But I went with Mateo Uiagalelei out of Oregon. Now, the strength is there and the potential is there. I mean, it is all there. You and I looked at last year's tape and we weren't thrilled, man. There was a lot of tape, especially on my side of things. There was a lot of
Hmm.
tape where it was like I didn't see him do a lot for the whole
Yeah,
game.
yeah.
But the potential is there and the strength is there. So if he were to burst this year, this is a perfect spot for him. I'm still not this high on him personally, but a lot of people are, man. The mocks are just all over him.
Hmm. Yeah,
A
they
lot
are.
of people love this guy. And I know it's inside of him. I just haven't seen it consistently come out in bursts the way I've seen some of these other guys come out. So I don't personally yet have him this high, but it fit the need here. We needed an edger out of this group. So I do like this the size and the strength. At least you're
Hmm.
getting that, even if
Hmm.
you don't get that, oh my gosh, quarterback stress here. So stay
Yep.
tuned. This is a guy here, if he were to burst, could even go a little bit higher, but there's a chance you could see a vanilla year out of him and him just drop down to pick 50 or 60. So stay tuned on
Yep.
that part of it.
Yeah, 100% agree with that assessment, but I think that's the right move for New Orleans here at this point with what we're doing. All right, New York Jets. This is the pick they are getting from the Dallas Cowboys via the Quinnen Williams trade, via the Micah Parsons trade. Um, because Dallas, we'll get to it, has to send the better of the Green Bay or Dallas pick to New York for Quinn Williams. With the Jets, we did quarterback earlier, then we went defensive tackle, and then their third need that I mentioned was a linebacker or a defensive back. With some of those other free agents that they have.